6 weeks before Claire Thomas's charity gala, the left edge of her skate caught a groove in the ice, and the sudden, sharp scrape of steel was the only warning I got before gravity took her. I dropped my clipboard, the plastic clattering against the frozen surface, and closed the 2 feet between us in a single, reflexive stride. My hands caught the heavy fleece of her blue winter jacket just as her balance inverted, stopping her backward momentum an inch before her head could strike the ice. For a second, the only sound was the deep, mechanical hum of the overhead halogen lights and the sharp intake of her breath. I braced my weight against the skates, stabilizing her, waiting for the panic to set in. Instead, Claire looked up at me from her precarious angle, her blonde hair escaping her ponytail in a messy halo against the glare of the lights, and let out a breathless, genuine laugh. That was the wrong reaction. People who fell on the ice stiffened. They panicked. They didn't smile like the cold was an inside joke. "I told you the edges were sharp," I said, my voice steady, masking the sudden spike of adrenaline in my chest. "You did," Claire agreed, not making any immediate move to right herself. "I thought you were speaking metaphorically about the learning curve." I carefully shifted my grip, a hand at the center of her back, the other on her arm, applying just enough pressure to help her stand without doing the work for her. I asked, "Are you steady?" before letting go completely. "I am," she said, brushing a dusting of frost from her sleeve. She smoothed the front of her ribbed top, her expression shifting back to the composed, slightly guarded look she wore into the rink every Tuesday night. Though I think my pride might have a bruise. I picked up my clipboard, checking the time. It was past 9. The rink was completely empty, the echo of our voices swallowed by the cavernous ceiling. "You play the ice you have, not the ice you want. Claire, you tried to force a turn on a patch that wasn't resurfaced yet." She let out a soft breath, her breath pluming in the freezing air. Claire Thomas didn't take instruction easily. She was 39, a senior partner at a development firm that was deciding whether my struggling minor league time and this rink were worth the land beneath them. She had hired me for 6 weeks of private lessons before her firm's winter charity gala. Each Tuesday, she would learn one section of the rink, one safe stop. And one way to face a room without letting it decide her balance. It was a transaction. But there was a tension in the way she laced her skates, a tight energy that didn't match a woman who routinely tore apart zoning contracts. Something else was riding on this gala, something she wasn't putting on the ice. "Let's run the perimeter again," I said, gesturing with my pen. "Keep your knees bent." She nodded, pushing off with a hesitant but improving stride. I watched her form, keeping pace a few feet behind her. I noticed the way she leaned too far forward, overcompensating, terrified of falling backward again. I didn't correct her immediately. I just stayed close enough to catch her if she went down. When we circled back to the home bench, the heavy metal fire doors at the far end of the lobby rattled fiercely. The sound reverberated through the empty arena. "The wind is picking up," Claire noted, stopping at the boards and gripping the blue plastic edge with both hands. "It's a nor'easter," I said, checking my phone. The signal was dead. Just a hollow no service where the bars usually sat. They upgraded the warning an hour ago. Just as I said it, the main entrance doors shuttered again, followed by the distinct sound of shattering glass from the lobby. "Wait here," I told her, my tone shifting from coach to owner. "Nolan," she started, but I was already stepping off the ice onto the rubber matting, the blades of my skates biting into the surface. I jogged down the short hallway to the lobby. The front glass doors had held, but the secondary display case holding the team's meager trophies had completely blown out from the pressure differential, glass glittering across the carpet like ice. Beyond the glass doors, the world was a white, chaotic blur. The snow was falling so fast it looked solid. I heard the heavy, rhythmic clunk of Claire walking on the rubber mats behind me. She had kept her skate guards off, completely disregarding the damage to the blades. "I told you to wait on the ice," I said, not turning around as I checked the lock on the main doors. "I don't do well waiting," she replied, coming to a stop beside me. She looked out at the storm, her arms crossing over her chest. "That looks Impassable, I finished for her. I pointed to the snowdrift already halfway up the glass. The plows won't touch this until morning. The roads are closed. Claire pulled her phone from her jacket pocket. She tapped the screen, her brow furrowing. I have no signal. At all. The tower on the ridge probably went down. I turned to face her, leaning against the reinforced frame of the door. Looks like you're getting your money's worth tonight. Claire, we're stuck here. She looked at me, a flash of something vulnerable crossing her face before she clamped down on it. I have a board meeting at 8 in the morning. You have a board meeting when the state of emergency lifts, I corrected gently. I stepped away from the door. Come on, let's get the skates off. We walked back to the home locker room in silence. The halogen lights flickered overhead. A long, stuttering pulse before holding steady again. I could feel the cold seeping through the concrete walls. The rink's boiler was old and it struggled on a good day. Claire sat on the wooden bench, her fingers fumbling with the stiff, frozen laces of her skates. I watched her struggle for a moment. My instinct was to kneel down and do it for her. I wanted to fix the minor frustration on her face, but she was a woman who hated being managed. I kept my hands in my pockets, maintaining the boundary. Pull the loop outward, not up, I said quietly. She paused, adjusted her grip, and the knot gave way. A small, victorious sigh escaped her lips. Thank you, she muttered. My job, I said lightly. I unlaced my own skates in quick, practiced motions, swapping them for my boots. Once she had her boots on, she stood up, rubbing her arms. So, what are the rules of being snowed in at a hockey rink? Rule 1, I said, grabbing a set of heavy wool team blankets from the equipment cage and tossing one to her. We conserve heat. Rule 2, we don't wander. This building has blind spots and the power grid is hanging by a thread. If it goes dark, you stay where you are until I come get you. She caught the blanket, wrapping it over her shoulders. And Rule 3? Rule 3, I walked past her, checking the emergency flashlight mounted on the wall. You don't mention my team's current standings in the league. A small, surprised laugh broke from her. It was the same laugh she'd had on the ice. It warmed the freezing air just a fraction. Deal, she said. By the third week, Claire could cross the rink without gripping the boards. She still hated the first push, the moment when both skates had to trust the surface at once, but she no longer apologized when she wobbled. During one lesson, she stopped beside the blue line and pointed toward the empty stands. That is where Marcus will sit. You know where he sits? He likes the seat with the best view of people making mistakes. I handed her the worn pair of practice gloves she always forgot in the locker room. Then give him a view of you finishing the lap. She pulled them on. You keep these here? You keep forgetting them here. That sounds suspiciously like planning. It is called owning a rink. She pushed away from the boards. This time, I did not skate behind her. I moved to the opposite side of the circle, where she could see me without needing me to catch her. She made the turn, slowed at the far corner, and stopped cleanly beneath the humming halogen lights. You did not follow me? She called. You did not need me to. For a second, she stood with her hands loose at her sides. Then she looked toward the empty seat where Marcus would sit and lifted her chin. I may keep that view, she said. You may? She skated back toward me, slower this time, choosing each edge instead of fighting it. When she reached the center line, she held out her hand, not for balance, but to return the gloves. I shook my head. Keep them. Why? Because you will forget them next Tuesday. And if I don't? Then I will have to find another excuse to see you. Her smile arrived before she looked down at the gloves. Careful, coach. I am always careful. That is not what your eyes say. The rink lights hummed above us. I looked away first, pretending to check the scoreboard. We moved to the manager's office behind the bleachers. It was a cramped space, smelling faintly of old coffee and floor wax, but it was the only room in the building with a dedicated space heater. I flicked it on, the small coils glowing a dull orange, fighting a losing battle against the ambient cold. Claire took the single armchair, pulling her knees up slightly. She looked out of place surrounded by scouting reports and broken hockey sticks. She was polished, even in a winter coat, exuding a corporate competence that usually kept people at a distance. "Marcus called today," she said suddenly, staring at the glowing heater. I paused, halfway through organizing a stack of invoices I didn't really need to organize. Marcus Vance, the rival developer who sat on her board, the guy who wanted my rink demolished to build a high-rise. And what did Marcus want? "He filed a safety complaint with the city," she said, her voice tight. "He claimed the roof trusses here are structurally compromised. He's using the storm as an excuse to demand a shutdown order by tomorrow. If he gets it, the gala is canceled. And if the gala is canceled..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. If the gala failed, her faction on the board lost their leverage, and Marcus would take control. It was why she was so tense. It wasn't just about learning to skate. It was about holding her ground. "The roof is fine," I said firmly, dropping the invoices. "I had a structural engineer clear it last month. The trusses are steel, not timber. They creak when the temperature drops, but they hold." Marcus doesn't care about the truth. Nolan, he cares about the paperwork. He has an inspector ready to red tag this place the second the roads open. She looked up at me, the age gap between us suddenly apparent in the weary lines around her eyes. She was fighting a war I only understood the edges of. "I'm too old to be playing these games with him. I should have secured an alternate venue." "You play the ice you have," I repeated, the words quieter this time. I pulled the desk chair out and sat across from her. "Marcus is playing a bluff. We just have to outlast it." The lights above us flickered violently, died completely, and then surged back to life with a louder electronic whine. "It's not a comforting sound," Claire noted, gripping her blanket. "Generator room," I said, standing up immediately. "The automatic switch is sticking. If the grid drops entirely, the backup won't kick in unless I manually override the transfer." "I'm coming with you," she said, already standing. "Claire, no, Rule 2, you stay here where it's warm." "Rule 2 was for when it goes dark," she countered, stepping into the hallway. "It's not dark yet, and I'm not sitting in an office waiting to freeze." I looked at her. Her chin was tipped up, a challenge in her eyes. I could have pulled rank, but the choice was hers. "Do you want to come with me? Or would you rather stay in the office while I check the generator?" "I want to come," she said. "Tell me where to step, and I will follow your instructions." "All right, if I say stop, you stop." Agreed. We navigated the concrete corridors beneath the bleachers. The cold here was absolute, biting through my jacket. I noticed Claire shivering, her teeth clicking together lightly. I didn't say anything, but I adjusted my pace, taking the lead and moving slightly to the left to block the draft coming from the loading dock doors. It was a small thing. W3. She didn't comment on it, but she fell into the pocket of still air behind me. We reached the utility corridor. A set of heavy double doors leading to the exterior alley were rattling violently. The wind was howling through a gap in the center where the latch had failed. A pile of snow was already forming on the concrete floor. "It's going to tear the hinges off," I said, analyzing the problem. The lock was stripped. "What do we do?" Claire asked, her voice raising over the wind. "We barricade it," I said. "There's a pallet of rock salt in the storage cage." I moved to the cage, unlocked it, and started dragging the heavy 50-pound bags out. Claire dropped her blanket on a dry crate and looked at me. "May I take the other side?" she asked. I checked her footing. "Yes, lift only when I count." She grabbed the corner of a bag. "Understood." "I've got it," I said quickly. "It's 50 pounds. Nolan, you have a bad left knee. I read your file before I hired you," she said, pulling her end. "Lift on 3. I stared at her for a split second, surprised, then nodded. 1, 2, 3. We worked in tandem, stacking the heavy bags against the rattling doors. It was exhausting. Physical work, dust from the salt coated our gloves, but we fell into a rhythm. We didn't talk. We just breathed in the freezing air, sharing the weight, solving the immediate problem. When the last bag was in place, the doors held firm, the howling wind muffled. Claire leaned against the wall, breathing hard, a smudge of dirt on her cheek. I haven't done manual labor since architecture school. I handed her a clean rag from my pocket. You have good form. Keep your back straight. She took the rag, wiping her face, a small smile playing on her lips. Thanks, coach. Before I could reply, a sound echoed from above, a deep, resonant crack that sounded like a gunshot. The building shuddered. Dust rained down from the exposed pipes in the ceiling. Claire froze. Was that? The roof, I said, the word tasting like lead. The overhead lights went completely black. Total, suffocating darkness. The hum of the halogen lights died, leaving only the sound of the wind outside. Nolan? Her voice was a tight whisper in the dark. I'm here, I said immediately. I reached out, my hand finding the sleeve of her jacket in the pitch black. I didn't grab her hand, just gripped the fabric near her elbow to anchor her. Don't move. I pulled my phone from my pocket and turned on the flashlight. The narrow beam cut through the dust swirling in the air. What broke? She asked, her voice impressively calm, though I could feel the faint tremor in her arm through her sleeve. That came from the main rink, I said, calculating the risk. Probably a secondary truss buckling under the snow load. The main structure is steel, but the cross bracing is old. Marcus was right, she whispered, the defeat heavy in her tone. No, I corrected sharply, my voice echoing in the concrete hall. Marcus wants it to fail so he can condemn it. A broken brace isn't a structural collapse, but we can't stay in this wing. If the grid is down, the temperature is going to drop fast. The manager's office? Too close to the main span. I decided, we need to go to the generator room. It's built into the foundation block. It's a bunker, and it has residual heat from the engine block. Lead the way, she said. I held the flashlight out so she could see the path instead of pulling her forward. The beam illuminated old posters and chipped paint. We moved slowly, calling out every step and uneven patch of concrete. When the shortest route passed beneath a suspect ceiling span, Claire pointed toward the reinforced tunnel. That way, she said. The longer route is safer. I nodded. Your decision. When we finally reached the heavy steel door of the generator room, I pushed it open. The room was small, smelling heavily of diesel and ozone, but it was noticeably warmer than the hallway. The massive green generator sat silent in the center. I guided Claire to a heavy wooden workbench against the wall. Sit here. I moved to the control panel of the generator. I shone the light on the dials. The automatic transfer switch was dead. I have to bypass the solenoid, I explained, pulling a multi-tool from my belt. It'll take a minute. I worked quickly, the metal cold against my fingers. I could hear Claire breathing quietly in the dark behind me. I didn't try to fill the silence with useless chatter. I just focused on the task, the tactile sensation of the wire, the precise turn of the screw. You know exactly what you're doing, she said softly into the dark. I own the building, I replied, stripping a wire. I had to learn how it breathes. I think you just like fixing things. I didn't answer right away. I made the final connection, gripped the heavy manual override lever, and pulled down hard. The generator roared to life, a deafening, vibrating mechanical thunder that shook the floor. A second later, the single caged bulb on the ceiling flickered and burned a harsh, steady yellow. I turned around. Claire was sitting on the workbench, her hands gripping the edge, looking at me in the harsh light. The relief on her face was palpable. Let there be light, I said, clipping my tool back to my belt. She let out a breath, her shoulders dropping. You're very competent. Nolan Parker. It's just a switch, Claire. No, it's not, she said, her eyes tracking my movements as I checked the fuel gauges. My ex-husband would have spent the last hour complaining about the city infrastructure and then waited for someone else to fix it. You just handle it. I looked at her. It was the first time she had mentioned a husband. I kept my distance, leaning against the warm metal casing of the generator. Complaining doesn't fix the heat. No, it doesn't. She looked down at her hands. I'm 39. Nolan. I manage a portfolio worth $500 million. And tonight, I was terrified that a stupid charity gala and a little snow were going to end my career. Because if Marcus shuts this place down, my board loses faith in my judgment. They already think I'm losing my edge. Why did you choose this rink, Claire? You could have rented the downtown arena. She met my eyes. Because this is the rink where my dad taught me to skate when I was 6, before he built the firm, before everything became about margins and optics. I wanted the gala here to remind the board where we came from. Marcus thinks it's sentimental weakness. I understood then. The tight energy, the triple-rate lessons. She was trying to protect a ghost. It's not weakness, I said quietly. I took a step closer, stopping a respectful foot away from the workbench. I didn't reach for her. I held the space. It's loyalty, and Marcus is a fool if he doesn't see the value in that. She looked at me, a long, quiet look. You're a strange guy. Nolan. I've been called worse. What time is it? She asked, her voice softening. I checked my watch. We have 6 hours until the board meeting. She sighed, the fight draining out of her. Even if the road's clear, I can't prove the roof is safe. Marcus will have the inspector here at dawn. It's over. It's not over, I said, a hard edge returning to my voice. I turned to a metal filing cabinet in the corner of the room. I yanked the bottom drawer open and pulled out a thick, coiled blueprint. I dropped it on the workbench next to her. What is this? She asked. The original structural schematics, I said, unrolling it and pinning the corners with tools. I spent last summer doing a laser survey of the entire truss system. Look here. I pointed to a complex web of lines. The crack we heard? It was localized to the non-load-bearing acoustic baffling over Section 4. The main steel arch, right here, is independent of that system. Claire leaned in, her corporate instincts taking over. She traced the line with her finger. You have proof of this? A certified survey? In my office, safely locked in a fireproof safe. Yes. She looked up at me, a fierce, sudden light in her eyes. If I can put that survey on the table at 8 a.m., Marcus's safety complaint is invalid. It becomes a malicious filing. Exactly, I said. Nolan, she started, the corporate mask dropping completely. She looked at me not as a client, but as a partner. If we pull this off, we will, I said simply. We spent the next few hours in the bunker. I found a thermos of coffee I'd left in the cabinet and poured her a cup in a paper cup. We didn't talk much. We existed in a comfortable, shared silence, the roar of the generator a steady heartbeat beneath us. I noticed her eyes drooping around 4A. I didn't say anything, just shifted my jacket to create a makeshift pillow on the bench and gestured to it. She lay down without a word and slept for an hour. At 6, the wind began to die down. The heavy, oppressive sound of the storm faded into a quiet stillness. It's stopping, Claire said, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. I checked my phone. 1 bar of service. The plows are moving. The main road is clear. We need to get to your office, get the survey. We left the generator room. The rink was freezing, our breath pluming instantly. We made our way to my main office. The building was battered, debris scattered in the halls, but the core structure was intact. I unlocked the safe and handed her the thick manila envelope containing the certified survey. She held it like a shield. I owe you, Nolan. You paid for the ice time, I deflected, locking the safe. I'm not talking about the skating. Before I could answer, the heavy front doors of the lobby were wrenched open. I stepped out of the office, Claire right behind me. Standing in the lobby, snow covering his expensive overcoat, was Marcus Vance. He was flanked by a tired-looking city inspector in a high-vis jacket. Claire, Marcus said, feigning surprise. You're here. I tried to call. The city is issuing an emergency closure order for this facility. On what grounds, Marcus? Claire asked, stepping around me. She didn't look tired. She looked lethal. Structural failure, Marcus said smoothly. We heard reports of a roof collapse. You heard wrong. I stepped forward, my voice low and carrying through the cold air. A piece of acoustic baffling fell. The steel is intact. I don't take engineering advice from a washed-up hockey player, Marcus sneered. He turned to the inspector. Red tag the doors. He won't be doing that, Claire said. Her voice rang out, clear and dominant. She held up the manila envelope. This is a certified laser structural survey completed 3 months ago, proving the main arches exceed city code by 40%. The crack you heard about was non-structural. Marcus's smile faltered. That's impossible. It's documented, she countered, stepping into his space. She didn't shrink. She took the risk entirely on herself. If you try to force a closure without verifying this document, I will have the firm's legal team file a tortious interference claim against you personally before noon. The gala happens here. The inspector looked at the envelope, then at Marcus, and took a step back. I can't red tag it without an assessment. Mr. Vance, not if they have a certified survey. Marcus stared at Claire, his jaw tight. He knew he'd lost. He turned without a word and walked back out into the snow. The room went quiet. The threat was gone, ended lawfully and permanently. Claire turned to me, the adrenaline still high in her eyes. I need to get to the board meeting to officially secure the venue. Do you want me to walk you to the car, or are you steady? I asked. Walk with me, she said, and led the way toward the shattered front doors where the plows had cleared a path. She stopped at the threshold. She looked at me, a long, searching look. She didn't say thank you again. She didn't need to. She just nodded, a promise in the gesture, and walked out to her waiting car. 2 weeks later, the rink was transformed. The acoustic baffling was repaired, the glass replaced, the ice was flawless, covered for the evening with specialized flooring near the edges. But the center remained open, gleaming under rented high-end theatrical lighting. The gala was a masterpiece of corporate elegance, the board members mingling in expensive suits, drinking champagne where minor league players usually spit teeth. I stood near the home bench, wearing a dark suit that felt restrictive compared to my usual gear. I watched the room. Marcus was there, nursing a drink in the corner, thoroughly neutralized. The firm had backed Claire entirely. I was about to head back to my office when a voice cut through the ambient noise of the crowd. You look uncomfortable, coach. I turned. Claire was standing there. She wore a deep blue evening gown that caught the ambient light. Her hair swept up. She looked formidable and beautiful. I'm out of my element, I admitted, keeping my hands in my pockets. You own the building, she reminded me softly. She took a step closer. She wasn't wearing the corporate armor tonight. She looked relaxed, the tension of the past 2 months completely gone. I do, I agreed. The board is thrilled, she said, looking out at the crowd. They loved the authentic community integration of the venue. She rolled her eyes slightly at the corporate speak. The gala plan had been built during those 6 weeks, one practical choice at a time. Claire had secured the caterer, confirmed the museum sponsors, and written a venue protocol that kept guests off the working ice. I had arranged the flooring, repaired the boards, and made the rink's emergency plan visible to every vendor. She had not simply borrowed my building for one night, she had made the event accountable to the people who kept it running. The board had approved the plan because Claire presented the numbers herself. She explained the repair costs, the insurance conditions, the access routes, and the community grants the gala would fund. When one director asked whether the rink was too sentimental for a corporate event, Claire placed her father's original rink photograph beside the budget. Sentiment is not the opposite of due diligence, she told them. It is the reason we are willing to do the due diligence properly. That sentence came back to me as I watched donors step carefully around the marked edge of the ice. The rink was not pretending to be something else. It was offering the room exactly what it had, repaired, documented, and ready. I'm glad it worked out, I said safely. She turned her attention back to me. I still owe you a lesson. We never finished the perimeter. I don't think you need it, I said. You stood your ground just fine. I wasn't talking about Marcus, she said quietly. She reached out, breaking the boundary I had held for weeks. Her hand touched my arm, her fingers resting lightly on the fabric of my suit jacket. It was a small touch, but it felt louder than the music playing in the arena. Nolan, she said, her voice dropping, meant only for me. I want you to meet my partners, not as a vendor, as the man who saved this event. She was making a choice, a public, visible choice, pulling me into her circle. Lead the way, I said. She smiled, a genuine, warm expression that reached her eyes. She turned, leading me toward the center of the room. As we walked, she stepped slightly onto the edge of the exposed ice to bypass a group of guests. Her heel caught the frozen surface. It was exactly like the first night, the sudden loss of balance, the slight gasp. My reflexes hadn't changed. I caught her forearm and steadied her before her skate could slide farther. I kept my other hand on the edge of the rubber mat, giving her room to regain her balance. For a second, the crowd faded. It was just the hum of the rink lights and the careful pressure of her hand against my sleeve. Claire didn't panic. She didn't stiffen. She looked up at me from the circle of my arms, her face inches from mine, and that same brilliant smile broke across her face. She looked up at me and smiled. My eyes are up here, you know. A short, surprised laugh escaped my chest. Are you steady? I asked. I am, she said. I waited until both her skates were secure on the rubber matting before letting go. You play the ice you have, I said softly. I am, she replied, reaching out and taking my hand, lacing her fingers through mine. She didn't let go as she turned to face the room. Courage is not only standing up to a bully. It is choosing a steady, reliable reality with someone who respects your judgment and gives you room to choose. The green flag is asking before stepping in, sharing the work, respecting a boundary, and trusting a capable partner to make her own decision. Please like and subscribe for more clean, emotional romance stories. And tell us, would you trust someone who helped you stand without taking away your balance?